Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Scott Anton. I'm the Vice President of Business Development with Gideon Taylor, and I'd like to welcome you all here to our webinar this afternoon. We're excited to share this with you. A lot of you might recognize Gideon Taylor as the GT eForms folks, but over the last few years in particular, we've expanded significantly to encompass a wide range of PeopleSoft and enterprise software solutions, as well as services. Today's webinar focuses very squarely on some of our true passions, and that includes ultra-efficient process automation and an exceptional user experience, allowing organizations to drive greater efficiency, greater productivity, and a very personalized experience with their PeopleSoft systems or other enterprise software systems. With that being said, I'm just going to go ahead and hand this over to Andrew Badiz. I should do a little bit of housekeeping. If you have questions during our session, feel free to go ahead and post those in either the chat or the Q&A. We'll be monitoring both of those. It might be easier if you do it in the Q&A. And we will be distributing a link to this recording for everybody who registered for the webinar. So you'll be able to watch it again for your viewing enjoyment. And I will go ahead and introduce our Managing Director of our UI and, our AI and UX practice, Mr. Andrew Badiz. Andrew, it's all yours.
All right, Scott, thank you. You see my screen okay?
Absolutely.
Is that coming through? Good. Okay. Hopefully you all can hear me over the murmur of the cicadas outside my window. I think they only have a few weeks left, but they continue to be quite loud in my neck of the woods. This is Chat Your Way to Efficiency, right? So, we all kind of heard about digital transformation, using enterprise systems to collect data, to drive business processes, and we've heard about AI and analytics, but what if we could blend all these things together and make it easier for the user? So rather than thinking about our enterprise challenges siloed way, thinking about the software first and the user second, what if we thought about the user first? And then we had the technology, kind of plug into the solution that served the user. And that's what we have here today. That's what we're going to show you. So as Scott mentioned, that's me. I'm Andrew Badiz. I run all the AI and user experience practice stuff here at Gideon Taylor. It's a big passion of mine. I've been trying to bring consumer-oriented user experience to the enterprise, dating way back, former PeopleSofter in the late 90s. And I've been on this AI journey long before the acronym GPT was ever in the ether. So I got a lot to share today, and we're going to go through a few slides. We're going to spend a lot of time in an actual demo, however. So for those who maybe don't know us or maybe don't know the new version of us, you can see we've had a bit of a facelift. Part of Gideon Taylor, we kind of do everything, right? The idea is organizations, enterprises, higher ed institutions are going through some monumental shifts right now. I would argue the biggest shifts in enterprise technology in our lifetimes. AI represents more change in the way we're going to serve enterprise users than we've ever seen before, probably. And so Gideon Taylor wants to be aligned to that journey, right? So that means whether you're trying to get the most out of PeopleSoft, whether you're trying to move to a SaaS product in the cloud, how do you make that journey as efficient and pitfall-free as possible? How do you blend in modern technologies on your journey? In what order do you do those things? And so we're here to kind of soup to nuts serve all those needs for our clients. And you can see there on the right some of the things we're doing. Gideon Taylor is divided up into a couple key practice areas. So just to give you a little context, I'm here in the bottom right corner. I focus on the AI and user experience stuff, but we have other practices focused on the cloud, business process automation, and eForms, Fusion apps, and PeopleSoft as well. So we all work together. And ultimately, you see the logo there, that GT logo there, but I like to think of this as your users are in the middle of that circle. And they don't need to be aware of these little puzzle pieces. They just need to say, boy, was that easy, right? That's all we're looking to get to at the end of the day. So let's talk about business processes. And there's probably no better business process to have this discussion than employee onboarding. Let's use that as our use case to talk about, self-service, user experience, and complicated business process. And I got a great quote here from Eric Monax, and he said, if a new employee doesn't feel welcome or isn't given direction on their first day, it's an indicator their colleagues, their manager, the company, they haven't invested time to set the employee up for success. The employee already feeling disengaged may already decide it's time to start looking for a new job. Right? Obviously, that is an outcome we're trying to avoid. But in today's world, we're all doing more with less. We're very busy. We've all been here, right? And a new employee, or maybe even a new student comes on board, and you have a day job, and it's hard. It's hard to keep track of it. And, while you have a dozen things you're worried about, that new employee is really only thinking about one thing in the moment. And so it's very natural that when your business process around onboarding is centralized around my time, my human input, that it will slow down and it will be a bad experience. And so why can't we use automation and AI to avoid that pitfall? And that's what this session is all about. So one of the reasons onboarding, classically is a challenge is it's really a potpourri of things, potpourri of systems, of steps, of people, of documents and forms. We have acknowledgments that employees need to read, and we need to track that they've actually read them and agreed to them. We have training classes, maybe in person, maybe online, that they need to complete. Of course, they need to sign up for their benefits, which is a timely event. Something that needs to be done so the deductions hit on that first payroll. The clock is ticking. I need to have meetings with my manager. These, have nothing to do with software systems, but I need to make sure I'm sitting down with my manager in that first week. I'm meeting my new team. I need to make sure tax withholdings are set up correctly. And my employee records, they better be accurate, right? My name better be spelled correctly. I better have the right address on file. All these things need to be taken care of. And sometimes they're partially taken care of during the application and offer process, but often they're either incomplete or maybe the data is of low quality on that first day that I start. So this is complicated, right? You can't rely on one piece of software to do all of this because there's a little bit of everything here. And so something has to tie these things together, and it shouldn't be the burden of the user to know, okay, well, you're being onboarded, these 3 steps, go to this system. Don't worry, here's the URL, here's your login, and these 2 steps go to that system, and here's the URL, and here's your login, and these steps go to this other system. And as a new user, as a new employee, that's wildly confusing. I need a little bit of help to navigate this complication, right? So why not conversational artificial intelligence? That's what we call it. Using AI conversationally to be a guide for the user, to walk them through a process, to make sure they're not late for things, that they're being reminded, that they're walking through step by step and taking care, right? The reason it works is because it's easy. It's just a conversation, right? A user's not learning a website and the menu system and the search, and it looks different, and I log in different. I'm just talking like I'm having a conversation with a coworker, right? There's no barrier to entry. There's no training I need. I just talk, right? It's easy. Increasingly, it's becoming what users expect. Users expect this type of technology to be available. They don't really want to talk to humans. They don't really want to figure out your software anymore. And now with ChatGPT, I think you're going to see conversational AI and conversational UI being used in consumer applications. It's going to become the norm. And so that's why we need to embrace it. It's also a one-stop shop, right? I'm not using one piece of software from one vendor in one tenancy. I'm bringing everything together and looking at things as a process. And it's multi-channel, so it can go where I am. If I spend my time in Microsoft Teams, it's there. If I'm on the go on my phone and I want to text, it's there. If I pull up the website and I have a question, it's there. It's everywhere. And that's, this is what users want. So this is why we think conversational artificial intelligence is the way to navigate these business processes. I'm going to show you that today. So what we're going to use, we have a product called IDA. This is a little bit about what IDA does. It was built with enterprise personalization and data security at the core of its DNA. We felt that conversational AI is really incomplete unless it can talk to all the systems that you use. I think that's what makes IDA different compared to other solutions out there. It uses a mix of different types of AIs, which I'll talk about here kind of at the end. So using IDA, we said, let's tackle the use case of onboarding. We had a client who was very interested in this use case. So we used IDA. We configured up an onboarding use case that I'm going to show you today in really a few days. So let's jump to the demo. I'm going to switch screens here. Scott, if you could just tell me that this is working and you're seeing my screen switch. If you could give me a verbal.
Yep.
Yeah,
we can see
we
it.
Good? Okay.
Yep.
So I'm going to use a PeopleSoft login here. This could be anywhere, by the way. You could be using Oracle HCM Cloud. You could be using Workday. Doesn't matter, but we have to pick something to show you a demo. So this is what we've chose. So I'm going to log in as a user. Now, what's going to happen is when I log in, you can see I'm kind of logging into my employee portal here, right? And all of a sudden, the chat just popped up. And why? That's personalization. So having the AI understand that, I think I'm Jennifer in this demo, if I'm not mistaken, but understanding that I'm a new employee. It knows when my hire date was. It knows I'm a new employee. So it's going to jump right in and it's going to say, hey, we got to get you through onboarding. By the way, you are 0% complete. You have one item that's past due that you're already late on. So let's go ahead and get started. So here's some tasks I need you to start doing. You can see it allows the user to work asynchronously. You don't have to work in order. I could go through a whole list of things I need to do, but for the sake of this demo, let's just start tackling them one by one. So validate name. Of course, name is something that is very important for tax reasons and for records reasons. We need to make sure when we give you an offer, we have the right primary legal name on file. And so the AI is talking to the HCM system saying, hey, the name I got on file for you is Jennifer Michaels. Is this right? I could change it right here in real time in the system of record. I could add a different name, right? Maybe a preferred name. I could do all that right here, but I'm going to say this looks good for the sake of speed. And we're just going to kind of move along. So that looks good. It says great news. I'm now 7% complete. I'm now caught up on my past due items. All these items have dates in which they're due. They're relative to my start date. But really, I think we want to get this all done within the first 10 days or so of employment. So let's go to the next step. Let's validate my address. So my address, came from a recruiting event. Someone in HR put it in the system, right? And immediately I recognize there's an error. This is kind of my address, but not totally my address. So I'm going to say, you know what, I need to change that address. So without me needing to understand where is this data stored, what's the system of record, what's the page, how do I navigate to it? I've never used this software before. How do I update? This is all happening conversationally. So I'm going to go ahead and update my home address. It's going to say, which country are you in? We'll say USA. And then it's going to pull up what we call an in-chat form. It's an easy way to have a user fill out multiple pieces of data. So I'm going to say, you know what, they missed that I'm actually in unit number 50. They only had 5 in there. So I'm going to go ahead and submit that. That is taking my information. It's going to confirm for me, hey, I'm about to commit this to the HCM system. This is going to become your new address on file. Are you okay with it? And I'm going to say, yes, I am. So that data is now updated in the HR system in real time. It shows up in the HR system as if I did this through the web interface, but I've done it all through chat. So
Hey,
great,
Andrew,
I'm 14. Yes.
there's a related question to that.
Yes.
Oh, it looks like Lynette already responded. There was a question as to whether or not when the employee says looks good, they acknowledge the accuracy of the information. Is there a date timestamp that captures that acknowledgement?
Yes. So everything you see here gets logged, but it's using a feature we call abbreviated logging. What does this mean? Well, this means that the actual responses from the AI aren't stored in the logs, right? So let's say the AI says, hey, I have your social security number on file, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Is that accurate? And the user says yes. So what happens is in abbreviated logging, which is stored in the cloud in this particular example, it says, okay, the bot's asked to confirm social security number and the user confirmed it. It doesn't actually say what the social security number is. We do that for privacy reasons so that you can see what happened without storing any of that data.
Awesome.
And of course, when it happened, the day, the time, all of it. Yep. So now I'm 14% done. So we can keep moving along here. So let's look at our phone number on file. And this one looks good to me. So I'm not going to bother there. And then let's say, okay, all of a sudden, I got a phone call and I had to leave, right? So maybe I timed out. That's normal, right? I'm not going to sit here and do everything in one sitting. So maybe I come back later in the day, I log in. What you'll see is that it remembers all my history from the day before, and it brings me right back to the next thing I need to do, which in this case is fill out an I-9 form, employment eligibility. So that's an I-9 form, but we call it employment eligibility just to be a little bit more user-friendly. This explains why it's necessary, why it's important. And this is a little bit more, it requires a little more data input. So what we're going to do here is when I click on this, this is actually integrating in a GTE form inline. And so what this will do is we'll pull up the I-9 verification step. And what you'll notice is in this particular case, it's not defaulting any of my information. You might be wondering, why is it doing it? Doesn't it have access to that information? Well, it does, but per federal regulations, we have to have the user type all this stuff in. So I'm going to come in here and fill this out. I'm going to say, I forgot my address. Was it Mulholland Drive, I think. It's number 54, Calabasas, California. I think it's 91020, something like that. Date of birth. Let's go with 1/1/1970. By the way, I don't know if you noticed it. I'm doing everything in my keyboard right now. So conversational AI in these forms, highly accessible, right? There's nothing better than a chronological text chat for an assisted device. It's not only WCAG compliant, but it's actually more friendly because it's only giving you snippets of information as you need it. It's not an entire page that it's reading out. It's only reading out the relevant piece. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, right? And I'll say Jennifer, I don't know, at email.com. And then just for the sake of argument, 310-555-5555. Sorry. And then I am a US citizen. I'm going to acknowledge this. I'm going to sign this. So now this is an official record. This actually, in this example with GTE forms, it can check against the government databases. It does all of that. Boom, return the chat. It's marked it complete automatically. I'm done with that whole step. Now I'm on to the next, 29% done. All right, well, I got to fill out my W-4. So again, because this is a tax form, we want an audit trail. We want an approval flow, a business process. It's an e-form that's all embedded in. I'm not going anywhere, no new windows popping up, nothing like that. Okay, I'm going to say I'm married. Let's just go for a big withholding here. I'm a California, both federal and state. I'll say I'm a California resident in this case. That all looks good to me. Submit that. Oh, I'm done with that. 36% done. Okay, out-of-state form. Let me see. I'm not sure what this is. Let me look at this. Okay, so do I plan to live outside of California this year? So it knows I live in California, which is interesting. And do I have plans to spend any time out of California? So maybe I have another residence. I want to live there for 3 months of the year, and I want the state taxes to be adjusted accordingly. So I'm going to take a look at this. And this gives me the ability to fill out some adjustments to my tax withholdings based on the amount of time I'm living in this other place. You know what? I'm not going to do this. I'm planning to be in California the whole year. So I'm going to hit X there. And I'm just going to manually mark this one complete because I'm going to basically skip it. So this checklist is allowing me to manually check it off my list. There might be steps where I'm not allowed to do that. I actually have to walk through the process. All right, so next step in onboarding is a direct deposit. We save quite a bit of money if we don't have to send paper checks. So that's in the organization's interest. So why don't we drive people to the outcome we want? So let's validate direct deposit. This one is kind of short and sweet, so we can do this all inside chat. You can see I have not set up direct deposit. Nothing's on file. So let's go ahead and set it up now. What's your bank's routing number? So I think it's this, but you can see here that's not a valid routing number. So the chat is actually doing some validation. I think routing numbers are they 7 digits? No, maybe they're 9 digits. Yep, that's good. What's my bank account number? So this is my bank account number. This is a checking account. And let's put the entire balance. Let's call this my checking. So it's now collected this data. So rather than me trying to look at a web page and figure it out, it's kind of asking me like a human would, like my own little assistant would. So I give it the information it needs. Are you ready to commit this? I'm going to say yes. My direct deposit records are now updated. When payroll runs, that's going to hit my account. Beautiful. All right. So let's move along. There's an employee handbook. We need to do this. So let's take a look at the employee handbook. In this case, the employee handbook is a PDF. So again, the idea is having a guide, a virtual guide that can handle all these different scenarios. Sometimes there's data in an enterprise system. Sometimes there's a policy. Sometimes there's a tax form that needs to be audited and tracked. Sometimes it's just a PDF I need to acknowledge. So in this case, I have the PDF embedded here. Of course, as any new employee would do, we're going to read this fully and in detail. And only when I'm done fully reading this will I acknowledge that I have read it. And now we have a record that the employee has acknowledged that they've read that handbook, which is something HR generalists want to see. Let's do emergency contacts. Make sure those are correct on file. Again, this is an eForm. It's embedded. So let's put Joe Michaels in here, spouse. That all looks good. You can see now the information is defaulted. Remember earlier, I changed my address from 5 to 54. So all this is real time. So as I get to the next step, this form knows that my address has changed and it's adapting to that address. So I'm going to submit that. Nope, something didn't go right there. I'm going to mark it manually complete then. And then we have some policies to acknowledge. So I'm going to go in here. And I got a code of conduct. That looks good. I'm going to tab over here using my keyboard. All these policies look good to me. And let's submit that. Turn the chat. 71%. Okay, I have another acknowledgement. So again, another style of a step that happens inside onboarding. And you can see all these different design patterns are handled in one UI that's familiar. 79%. Oh, I got to meet with my manager. Well, how is the AI going to help me with that? Well, in this case, it's just saying, hey, can you confirm that you have met with your manager? This is something you've done outside of the system. We actually have instances where we have clients in higher education where there may be situations where the AI is going to ask you to schedule a time with your advisor, and we can actually integrate with a scheduling system and have you book a meeting through the AI itself. In this case, I'm just validating that I've done this. So yes, I met with my manager. I got to do new hire orientation. So yeah, I'm going to say that I've scheduled that. That's just a confirmation. So all these are so every step I'm going through, right? It's being tracked that I completed it and when I completed it. So if I'm the hiring manager, or if I'm an HR generalist, I can have visibility into all my new hires and where they are in the process. And I can see who's falling behind, what's the average percent complete, and I can manage the whole process because it's all data driven now, right? Final step, you can see I didn't have to click a step. It knew there was only one step left. So it says, hey, I need you to enroll in benefits. Now, benefits is a bit complicated. It's probably not well suited for chat. So in this case, we're going to bring the user into, this is an example of one of our benefits processes. I'm walking through the whole wizard. I'm going through that process and I'm signing up for benefits. So I'm done with that. That's the last step. And you can see here, now the bot says, congratulations, you're done. Great to have you on the team. And now I've been introduced to not only the company and my new position, but now I understand who IDA is, or in any company or organization, it would have its own name, its own brand. And so now it says, I'm here to I can answer all sorts of questions for you. And so I could come in here and ask, really anything. So, it's got, let's see, what's a good question to ask? I could, do I have direct deposit set up? Because I just set that up, right? Oh, oops. Oh, my enter key is not behaving. I can also use voice. I didn't show that. Let me try to show that, see if that's working.
Please let me know if there's anything else I can do to help.
I don't know if you can hear that. That's the bot talking to you over the voice channel. I can also use this speaker here. Do I have direct deposit set up? It's taking a second. We might be having an issue in this environment. So let me go back. Yeah, this is a non-production environment, so it's not scaled up quite as much as a production environment is. We'll skip back to the slides in the meantime and talk a little bit about how this works. So we're actually using, IDA has what we call a multi-level AI system. And this is, we don't believe the way to deploy AI is to pick one or the other. We believe the solution is to weave them together. So there are times when you want a human in the loop to validate what the bot's going to say, because you cannot afford for it to hallucinate or be wrong. And there are times where you're okay with a little bit of creativity, right? So when an employee asks, do I have direct deposit set up? You need an answer. Like, yes, it's set up. It's going to this account. It's got to be right, right? But if somebody says, well, what's the best strategy for maximizing my retirement savings? Well, that may be an example where you can allow generative AI to give some recommendations that are kind of outside company policies. And so IDA handles both of these use cases depending on your tolerance for allowing the AI to do it on its own versus you wanting to have a human in the loop. And you can configure it to meet your needs. As I mentioned earlier, we're all about integration. So we have a series of integration adapters here to all these different kinds of systems, both for higher ed institutions, commercial and public sector, HCM systems, finance systems, student information systems, ticketing systems like ServiceNow, other technology systems, large language models, and the like. Just one quick slide here about results. So I know we're at about the half-hour mark, so I want to save a little bit of time for questions, but this is one of our clients had deployed this technology, and their peak, they track all their engagement through their service desk. So all the emails, all the phone calls, all the live chats, which was great. And so they tracked before and after of deploying technology like IDA. Actually, they used IDA, but they tracked how did it affect their number of tickets. And the results were actually quite staggering. Their phone volume was down 40% in that peak month. And their email volume was down over 65%, which is amazing because it's very hard to staff with humans when you have seasonal spikes like this. When one month you have 5,000 tickets, and the next month you have 10,000. How do you manage that? Ultimately, what happens is people wait on hold. Gartner says across all industries, the average amount of time a user waits for a response on a help desk request is 24 hours. That's the average. So when you get to peak months, users are just waiting. And I don't know, for any of you that maybe have kids, I think one thing that's evident with the new generations coming into the workforce, waiting is not something they will tolerate. And so this is the type of technology that can help eliminate the waiting. So that was it in a nutshell. Happy to take questions. We actually write a blog on the AI industry, what we're seeing out there, pitfalls, things to look out for. It's a great read. It is not a bunch of product marketing, so I recommend it to anybody who's interested. You can take a screenshot or take a photo with your camera there of the QR code. But we'll save some time here for questions. Do we have any questions, Scott or Scott?
Yeah, there's one that just came in. Is IDA as a platform something hosted by GT, or are there on-prem options?
That's a good question. So it is in the cloud. We host it in the Oracle cloud right now because it's kind of enterprise focused cloud. That's the conversational AI bits. When IDA goes and has to talk to your enterprise system, let's say PeopleSoft, to get some data, that data is not stored in the cloud. That remains in your system. So we have an architecture where you can authorize certain pieces of data to be read by chat. And so you're in total control of that data security. It's not something, you don't give us like a system account that has access to everything. And, the risk sits with us. No, you decide exactly what chat can use, and it is only relayed through the responses. It's never stored. There is not an on-premise version of the AI, really because it takes too much computing power. The cost of it would not, kind of work if we had it running on-premise.
Got a couple in the Q&A, Andrew.
Okay.
One is, how many different pieces, functionality do we need to purchase or enable in order to do something like this demo?
Well, yeah, that demo that you saw was using IDA, obviously, and it was integrating in both vanilla PeopleSoft pages and eForms. So there were two modules that you saw there in the demo.
Awesome. Another one we got from Rick was, how about approval workflow or multiple department processes like setting up a new business unit or hiring an employee?
Yeah, great question. So in the case of, I'll let Scott take it when it was an eForm, how that's handled. If it's PeopleSoft, for example, and many of these other enterprise systems, if there are business rules attached to the update, those business rules are enforced. For example, if I go change my address to a different city or a different state, in the PeopleSoft world, that actually goes through an approval step before it hits payroll, so they can double check it, or you can configure it to do so. So if you made that change in IDA, that same approval step gets kicked off. So in that case, if I change my address, my deductions on payroll wouldn't change immediately. Let's say payroll was ran that afternoon. It still has to pass through that approval step that would exist inside PeopleSoft. In the case of eForms, Scott, is that something you want to talk to a little about? It's quite deep in its functionality with approval workflows.
Sure. Yeah, eForms you can either use in conjunction with IDA, like Andrew was demonstrating, where IDA will launch a form and pre-populate that form with information from within the chat session, as well as information from the core enterprise software system. But you can also use it independent of IDA. So there are a lot of organizations that use GT eForms inside PeopleSoft to configure their own custom workflow-enabled self-service applications, whether those are job data changes or personal data changes, position data changes, really any kind of business process that you would otherwise rely on a PDF or a non-integrated forms application, or paper forms for that matter, or email-based requests. You can turn all that stuff into really easy to use, fully integrated PeopleSoft self-service for employees or managers or vendors or students, whoever your audience or your user might be. It's leveraging PeopleSoft security. It's leveraging the PeopleSoft approval framework, and that is also configuration based. So you can build out your custom workflows inside the GT eForms tool. Again, using the approval framework, and really enable those processes to execute in whatever fashion your business requires them to, or your organization requires them to.
Yeah, and also IDA doesn't have to only be used for employees or students. It can be used by the managers as well, or HR generalists, so they can be reminded of approvals they need to take. It also has a function called IDA alerts or nudging. So you can do things like a really cool scenario is, let's say you're running Microsoft Teams or even SMS, and you're just sitting there, and then IDA can jump into your Teams and say, hey, I got some items that need your attention that are past due. I need some approvals done. And so it can kind of nudge people along to get business processes completed.
Yeah, and there are organizations that are using these for both internal and external processes. So we've been focused on internal processes, but there are also organizations that use these technologies, IDA and eForms, to help support prospective students. If you're a university or a college, or vendors or suppliers, or job applicants and prospective employees. So all of these different personas can be accommodated with any of these solutions.
How are we doing,
Not
Scott?
a question, but just an affirmation. Jonathan said, my company licenses the GT eForms tool, and it has been really helpful automating processes. Thanks, Jonathan.
It's awesome. Thank you very much for the endorsement, Jonathan.
Yeah, we love that.
And many of you might be aware that we host these webinars on an ongoing basis. Every month, we typically have either thought leadership, industry-wide content, or specific product-related content or solution-related content. So for those of you who might be GT eForms users, we host a variety of different webinars on different eForm solutions and things you can do with the tool. We're also doing some of that with the IDA solution now. So certainly you guys will all be on our mailing list. So if there are future events that you want to attend, we highly encourage you to. There's some really good stuff to be learned.
Got one other question here from William real quick. How are attachments handled? Just in the component, or does IDA manage those?
Well, yeah, and so in that case, I think which one did attachments? I-9, I think, Scott, right? That was happening in the form. I think you might have to. I think I kind of skipped through it. I didn't. we shortcutted it for demo purposes, but you might have to upload whatever it is, right? Like a passport or driver's license photo or whatever it is.
An image.
That's happening directly in the form in that case. IDA can take attachments. So like the most common use case is, like, here's a receipt for an expense report. Attach this to my expense report. So you could do that as well.
It is exciting to think about leveraging these kinds of technologies, particularly when you look at the conversational capabilities of IDA and being able to engage with a user in a very casual tone and understanding language and things like that. And just having it embedded, integrated within your core software systems. So it knows everything about that student or that employee or that manager that your systems know. It's got immediate, instantaneous access to all of that data to be able to respond immediately to those kinds of requests, whether it's just a request for information, some kind of question, or whether it's initiating some sort of transaction.
Yeah, we really want to be a one-stop shop. We think that's the best user experience. So maybe, as a new employee, I'm going through onboarding. I have a lot of HR questions, right? So IDA needs to answer HR questions. It needs to be connected to the HR system, right? But maybe along the way, I say, I'm having a problem logging into my email account. Well, maybe that's an IT thing, not an HR thing. Well, IDA could also, let's say, source answers from knowledge base articles in ServiceNow or Salesforce. And so it becomes a one-stop shop. The employee's not thinking, in terms of software systems or silos or departments. They're just thinking, I got a problem. How do I solve it? So if you can give them one place to go and it connects to all these resources, that really will produce the best user experience.
Yeah, and Lynette made a very good point in the chat, talking about different kinds of business transactions. We've been focused on onboarding, obviously, but looking at this for various finance-related transactions or student-related transactions. Anytime you need to walk a user through a process, multiple steps, and being able to accomplish that similarly as a checklist with all of those different items checked off. This is a really exciting technology to explore. If you think about supplier onboarding, having suppliers registered to do business with the organization, the different forms that they need to submit, the information that they need to fill out, and all of that can be directly integrated within your PeopleSoft system. So they're going in and entering the information about them as an account, as opposed to having your internal users have to worry about that, or your internal office staff. And all of that stuff obviously can be reviewed and approved before it hits your system, so that they're not inputting bad data or erroneous data. That can all be part of your standard business process.
How are we doing on our queue, Scott?
Yeah, no other questions currently. So I think we are good. This has been awesome.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. This was fun. Hopefully next time we meet, you won't hear the cicadas. I think they're on borrowed time right now.
You've got a really good microphone, because we can't hear anything on this end.
Yeah, no cicadas on the end. I did get one more question if we've got a minute. And
yeah.
From Phil. He said, can IDA handle cross-platform needs? For example, if an employee logs into Campus Solutions but has steps they need to complete for onboarding in HCM.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So that's what it's meant for. So we can do that, or another popular use case is, we, like for students, a very popular use case is things like grades, right? Like a student says like, hey, do you have my grades? Like, how am I doing in class? That sort of thing. And well, to answer that question, you might need to talk to multiple systems, right? You might have a midterm grade in PeopleSoft, but your assignment scores are in Canvas, right? And so it will actually talk to both those systems and give you information from both them based on your query. And so that's really helpful. We also have customers who will, maybe they're going to the cloud, right? So most of this AI work has nothing to do with the backend systems. I'm sorry, very little to do with the backend system. So maybe on HR, they're moving to HCM cloud. So, but they want to innovate today. So they could deploy that type of functionality, direct deposits and paychecks and leave balances, all that kind of stuff on top of PeopleSoft. And then when they switch to HCM cloud, we're just kind of pointing the data sources at a different place. The whole user interface stays the same. So they'll use it as a change management transition tool as well. So two kind of cases in the spirit of your question.
Very good. I think that does us. I don't have any others that have come through. So as was mentioned, this has been recorded. We will send this all out to everybody. Should be next week by the latest. And we'll also include an invite to our next Lunch and Learn. That is with Madison College on July 11th. So we're excited to share that with you as well. But it's been awesome to have you here today, Andrew. Thank you. Scott, as always, thank you. And we're here to help. Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.